And we are live on Discovery Paranormal. And of course, we talk about cryptozoology once in a while. I like to talk about it, I like to ponder. And as global warming rages, things are becoming thawed out, and I'm also a big believer in cryonics, right? That you can freeze something and it can still live. We've seen happen with frogs and other type of life out there that things that get frozen all winter. Then, they say, well, they're not frozen solid and their heart kind of beats like, slightly or whatever, man, we want to call hibernation. So who knows how long hibernation lasts for different creatures, we'll say. And I like the whole story of the pterodactyls, right? Because one, people have seen them everywhere, and it's not just like, oh, I saw a pterodactyl up there, and you've had too many pints. Go home, you're drunk, you know. But in the Carolinas, in Utah, Texas, Idaho, that's several places in New York City, New York City years ago that a guy felt like he was brushed by a pterodactyl. Right? So in flight, when he was in his little flying machine, it it's not so far beyond the scope of reasonable that there could be these creatures like the woman in Florida that swears a some kind of velociraptor looking, and that referencing, of course, movies, because people, they don't want to see a velociraptor for real. And if it was one, it would probably stop and eat her first before it could continue on, and whatever else in sight. But she saw a dinosaur looking type of thing streaking across her backyard. It's on video. What the hell was that? Wasn't some alligator that got up on two legs and took off, and it looked like some kind of dinosaur creature. But in this day and age of hoaxes, there's so many people out there that are trying to just hoax each other and make you believe what they want you to believe. They want the sensationalistic hoopla, right? This is just people, okay, at a football game, and they look up in the sky because they hear this thing they've never heard before, and they look up and they see a pterodactyl flying over. Right? And these things are big, they're not exactly small. So, and then, in the banner for the picture for the show, I put several pictures that were supposedly from the late 1800s, early 1900s of these men who has shot down these pterodactyls, holding them up. And this is their prize. And, one where these soldiers that had his foot on its head. Is it photoshopped? When you look at a photo, you have to understand, you want to find the evidence you're trying to get past. Sure, people could Photoshop these things all day long. The one thing that stands out in the photos that I posted is that the men have very, very thin and small, frail bodies. It's not something that you see these days. And for even Photoshop, you have to get down in there, and as these guys are standing there holding these pterodactyls, they have their hands around its wings, the bone section of the wings, holding it up, and you can see their fingers. There's no cutout marks. I mean, if someone photoshopped it, it would have to be a really good job, and those guys would have to be holding on something similar and sitting in the front. And you can see like these kind of rednecky dudes with the hound dogs and the guns of the era. You really think that they would rope? I don't even know you can find that many thin men in America anymore. You think they could rope these little tiny men and get them together with the guns from that era, with dressed like that, with the background like that, just to spoof a picture of a pterodactyl? That would gain them no monetary value, nothing, And there's several pictures like that, not just one, but several of these throughout the ages of people that have killed pterodactyls. So let's talk about 1856 first and foremost, right? And this is going to my pterodactyl sighting is going to be much more recent, but in 1856, a French pterodactyl was entombed. Basically, that said this thing was entombed and reportedly awoken when miners constructing a tunnel split its rock. The story of the humorous tall tale and definite hoax thought that it retains an undeniable appeal to future researchers, right? But now they're saying it actually really happened. They at the time they're like, "Oh, it's a hoax! It's a hoax!" You know, it's 1856, right? It got into London, you know, some illustration, and for February 9th, 1856, pterodactyl had supposedly emerged, weak but nonetheless alive, from a hollow boulder, blasted apart. People love a story, right? So, but the reality is, then there were sightings of pterodactyls in that area. And when, you know, this is the interesting part about people. They'll mainly believe the first line of BS that they hear, you know, and then they'll deny anything else, you know, like you try to, you know, bring people up to a certain level. It's not going to happen, right? Because they don't want it. So modern day, and all I'm saying is that if there's a thing that could hibernate, you know, for years and years, maybe longer, I don't know, man, centuries, and then come alive because it thaws out, it's plausible. Because, you know, we can't base it on, oh, you know, doesn't work for humans and that type of thing. These are freaking dinosaurs, creatures that are unknown to us, unknown to how they function. You know, Jurassic Park. You know, you can speculate on how they function, but you don't know if they're going to go down there and get frozen. You know, in upstate New York, in the Finger Lakes, you got Seneca Lake. They got the Seneca Lake Monster. And they have pictures of that thing sticking its head up out of the water. It looks just like Loch Ness Monster. Just looks like the one up in Lake Champlain, too, up by Vermont. There's another one up there, right? Don't you think that's interesting that in glacier lakes, they all have one thing in common? They have reports of these creatures. So then, of course, as things are thawing out, in the world, you know, this glacier thawed out, they found a creature, freshwater, exactly like that. Little body, big, long neck, you know, head. The thing is gigantic. And it's something that could live in water. Is it so hard to believe that these lakes that are 600 feet deep, some deeper, would have those creatures still hanging around? These are glacier lakes, you know, packed full of food, right? And of course, if you get into the Great Lakes, you're talking about huge bodies of water, you know, so it's plausible. Plausible. And there's a story in Seneca Lake how a captain, you know, of a boat ran a larger vessel that would go up, I guess, from Geneva, New York, down to Watkins Glen, back and forth, that they saw this thing in the water and people have flipped out. And he, you know, ran it down and supposedly killed it, and it sank. That's humans, right? Destroy everything, man. So these are multiple accounts. The people in that boat, so they all saw it. They all had a similar description of what it was. Sorry, North Carolina, present day. Okay, it's North Carolina's got a lot of legends, man. You can't sell it short in the world of cryptozoology. They got the Bigfoot, right? I mean, they got the Lake Norman monster, another lake, the like monster that we've been talking about. They got the lizard man, right? The lizard men, the lizard women. But recently, there's been a growing belief of modern, basically, pterodactyls living in North Carolina. All right, and they were flying reptiles, of course, that many scientists believe went extinct a long time ago. Many scientists, you know, they really can't commit, can they? The ones that say, well, I think that maybe, perhaps could have went extinct. Yeah, because you can't say. You can't say. unless you know that they are gone. They find stuff every day that they thought was gone for a million years. So cryptozoologist Jonathan Whitcomb, author of many books about cryptozoology and all that, recently published an article about the creatures, including the new pterodactyl sightings in North Carolina. He commented, "My associates and I believe that these are non-extinct petrosaurs." Really non-extinct, because people are seeing them. That's how I'm going to describe every time I order a steak. It's going to be like, it's non-extinct. And people look at me all like, there you go. What many persons would call pterodactyls or flying dinosaurs are also called pterosaurs, right? So, Cynthia Lee, who has been studying to become a veterinary technician, reported to Whitcomb an apparent pterosaur. I like the word pterodactyl. I'm going to say pterodactyl. And she saw on Thursday, January 4th in Raleigh. She was sure that the flying creature had no feathers, but it did have a long tail with a diamond-shaped bulb at the end of the tail. It also had a head crest. She also spotted the creature last week. Following Wednesday's snow, Lee was taking an Uber ride to work when she saw the same crested creature out the window. The driver did not see it. Of course, trying to drive, man. Got no time to look at pterodactyls flying in the air. Her recent sightings, plus Uber drivers are a little twitchy, man, because they think that people are flipping out. Imagine, like, here's this girl in the back seat, like, there's a dinosaur up there flying, like, automatically the guy's like, oh man, I'm going to see myself on the news. It's going to be terrible. That's all you got to hear is some girl say, do you see that flying dinosaur? All right. All right, baby. No hablo. Oh, no hablo. Her recent sightings, that's my answer for everything these days. Her recent sightings in Raleigh weren't the first occasions someone in Cynthia's family had seen an apparent, also pterodactyl. She told Whitcomb about a sighting many years earlier. My mother and an uncle who who saw one also while they were playing outside at my grandma's house when they were really little, long time ago, right? They told on the Carolinas, you never know. They told grandma, but she didn't believe it. Of course not. You're going, hey, pterodactyl up in there. I thought they were extinct. Since she has seen for herself, however, Cynthia no longer believes that they're all extinct. So Whitcomb also wrote an extensive article on, I guess, petrosaurus.com. I should say pterosaurs. I don't know why I keep doing that. Because there's been several sightings around North Carolina. So that's just one of many. And this guy's focused on his local area, of Raleigh. But you know what I like? I like all the reports from the plain old people, like the blogs, when they go on there. And I do that a lot with like these Navajo sites or Hopi Indian sites when it comes to like skinwalkers or whatever. And I like people talk about it. It's not something that you barely see on television and you don't understand, because these guys, it's part of their culture, part of what's going on, right? So these are all like the top lines of what people say as they've seen this thing. These are all different people, right? It had an enormous pointed beak, a pointed top upon its head. The wingspan was probably 5 or 6 feet wide. Bony wing structure ending in points almost like sails. What looked like small claws on the middle wing, bat-like in a way. Maybe it had grayish fur or dark skin. 2 legs like a bird, kind of jutting straight out the rear. The legs were followed by a long tail with a spade at the end. I love this one. I'm not joking. I was not drinking. There were no drugs involved tonight. some friends I told tonight believe me that they knew I was unusually freaked and excited. My wife thought I was full of it. It's pretty bad if you're starting off. I'm not joking. I wasn't drinking. There was no drugs involved. Let's see. Those are your three disclaimers. So, the one particular night that this person didn't partake in any of those things, and his friends saw that he was freaked out and excited. That's like real, it's like real people, man. But when you get into these forums, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of people just writing whatever to say, but there are people who really do see these things, and they all look the same. There's video out there. I've seen some of the video. I don't know what to make of it. I mean, sure, it looks like a pterodactyl. Is it a pterodactyl? I don't know. There's a lot of people hoaxing stuff too, so I don't know. But let's see. Any cryptozoologist who might investigate the sighting of a pterodactyl could find the following statement interesting. The eyewitness also said pterodactyls don't have long tails in reconstructive art I looked at afterwards. Question is, what the hell did I see? Statistical analysis of the more credible reports apparent, modern pterodactyls is clear about the long tails. 41% of sightings were the long-tailed flying creatures, and only 2% did not have a long tail. 57% of the reports did not give any clear indication of tail length. A 20-to-1 ratio tells us that the long tails are common. So, and this is just like people using data from sightings. And that's kind of cool, man, because we're talking about something that's not supposed to be around anymore. So paleontologists, for the most part, believe that the short-tailed pterodactyl mostly lived long after the dominance of the long-tailed basal pterosaurus. Perhaps that's why many science fiction animations on television and film show the pterodactyls with short tails. The point is this: eyewitnesses are not being influenced by television or film when they report the long tails, because the long tails were supposed to be a creature that was way before that. So you may tell me that it couldn't be some pterodactyl eggs hanging out in the ice all these years, from the beginning of the Ice Age? I mean, you're talking about an extraordinary amount of time. It's frozen solid, right? And then here it is. Nice, sunny, carbon-filled air type of day. Here goes your glaciers breaking apart. Here's some eggs out in the sunshine, getting nice and warm. Maybe an eagle comes by and sits on them for a while and says, hey, look at this. It's nice to sit on a different type of egg once in a blue moon. You know what I mean? And then, boom, pterodactyl. And they just happen to go down to the Carolinas. Of course, like people do. All right? Better weather, lots of food. They can survive in those woods and they got deep, deep forests that people don't even go into half the time. I mean, why would anybody want to go in there? Hikers go in there and they get mauled by some kind of lizard man. They got enough to worry about. Then you tell them that there's pterodactyls on top of that. They're like, oh, man, see? Appalachian Mountains, man. The Appalachian Trail. So all kinds of mysterious stories on the Appalachian Trail. I love all that stuff, right? So they have other sightings in North Carolina. And by the way, this isn't just like the United States. I mean, it goes on and on and on. There's Africa. There's people all around. You can look online, all kinds of accounts for many years of people that believe they ran into a pterodactyl. So, all right, many of the persons who comment in the forum and discussion seem to have no knowledge of any other similar sighting. They looked at the report without the perspective of those cryptozoologists who have examined many reports of modern pterodactyls. Let's consider other sightings in North Carolina, right? In Asheville, North Carolina, a lady saw a huge black winged creature, very, very low over her car. It had no feathers but sharp edges to its features, right? In Jacksonville, North Carolina, an eyewitness saw something huge flying in the sky. It looked like a pale greenish white and smooth skin. It didn't appear to have any feathers, and it had the tail with a diamond shape on the end. Another eyewitness reported when I was around 10 years old and on the way up to camp in North Carolina, I saw one. It was an amazing sight. It looked like a pterodactyl. You see, even a 10-year-old, you think, is that plausible? Listen to a 10-year-old, because kids, man, you see all kinds of stuff when you're 10, but maybe it's an event that stood out in their mind, right? And it really comes down to, it's hard to judge just from even reading stories, right? Because they're just words. I mean, I like the real accounts, or the people that make the videos and they're all excited, or like their brain is baked and they don't know what to do. They kind of shut down, watching humans shut down during disasters. Like people just kind of like they freeze and they try to wrap their head around the moment and, what is this? And, where am I and what's going on? And who are you? type of thing. Right. So sighting in Raleigh. Let's see. I was going over a report of a pterodactyl sighting in North Carolina and noticed, let's see, some more similarities. Let me get past all of this. Past all of that, I want the real people, man. Pterodactyl found alive. Look at that. So, of course, you're going to have all kinds of people, writing. That's the problem with the whole paranormal world in general is that, people are stupid. And they do stupid things sometimes. And you can't fix stupidity. And then when they're out there, trying to prove something that is fake, it hurts the people out there who are the real pioneers, the ones who are trying to make that connection or doing that kind of field work, right? Anyway, there we go. Pterodactyl sighting. They were the largest creatures to ever attain flight, with wingspans reaching nearly 40 feet. Man, 40 feet wide, right? You think you can ride that sucker? Put a little Fred Flintstone type of thing on its back, get around. A little pterodactyl flight, dangle a rat in front of its nose and kind of get there. So pterodactyls ruled the prehistoric skies for over 100 million years. Do you really think something that would keep going on and on and on like that? And of course, they're not just airborne, but they're airborne and badass. They're not just like some little Tweety bird that's so fragile. These things are pterodactyls, man. It's a flying dinosaur. Can it eat a person? No, but it could kill you. You rip pieces. Some 40-foot wingspan could probably carry you away pretty easily. Maybe not me. Big dude. Might need 2 pterodactyls. Get on some teamwork, man. But they ruled for 100 million years. They died out when the dinosaurs died 65 million years ago, when the Earth was made habitable for humans, when it was terraformed. I don't believe in the whole 65 million years. I don't believe in carbon dating for the most part. I mean, a lot of scientists would snicker at that. And they can. But you need comparatives, if you're going to do that. And they really don't have those comparatives, do they? Because they're using carbon dating for other things. And then it comes down to the pace of how things grow and change. But whatever. That's for another show. So let's see. There's lots of modern day sightings of the pterodactyls and eyewitness descriptions. These are all pterodactyl sightings, this guy's saying. There's also intriguing rock carvings and even photographs that suggest that the species of amazing flying monster could have survived extinction. could have soared through the skies of the southwestern United States until very recently and might still exist in small numbers in remote parts of the world. So, one, you have to say to yourself, you don't know that they're all wiped out. And it's something that's got a very high survivability ratio. It can travel and get food and water. And, usually birds can, you know, make little birds pretty quick, especially if they have lots of eggs, man, right? So if that's how it works, I don't know, man. I've never seen one up close, right? Or far away. I've seen these pictures and videos. But pterodactyls were not technically dinosaurs, but a family of large flying reptiles. So a pterosaur means winged lizard. See? That was the name of my rock band years ago, man. The pterosaurs. That's right. Just kidding. That includes the pterodactyl and the pteranodon. So the pterosaur stood on two rather spindly legs and had wings composed of a leathery membrane that stretched from the animal's extremely long forefinger to its body. Despite their appearance, they were not related to birds and were highly successful flyers that might have dined on fish and insects. So, boom, they're eating fish. Boom, they're eating all this stuff flying in the air. And then, like scavenger wise, they probably eat whatever the hell. Some T Rex died. They go eat that thing. So, modern pterodactyl sightings. Here we go. Although there seems to be no hard evidence that pterodactyls that did not die out millions of years ago, no pterosaurs have ever been captured and no bodies have ever been found in recent history. Not in the 1800s, where they found all kinds of stuff, So they just later on said it was a hoax. Like these guys had all the time in the world to sit around hoaxing things. They had to work, and they didn't work, they didn't eat. They didn't have time to put fake skeletons, when they tore into Spanish Hill by Waverly, New York, in Sayre, Pennsylvania. They found all those giant skulls, right? And skeletons that were 14 feet long, 15 feet long. And then years later, oh, no, it was a hoax. Really? It was a hoax. Is that why the chief archaeologist came from Pittsburgh out to the site and certified the bones real? And then they took all the stuff, they bagged everything up, and they shipped it off to the University of Philadelphia, where they disappeared a couple years later. So you're not going to waste all your time shipping fake bones back and forth and whatever, man. And these guys didn't have any time to put together fake human bones of that size. Come on. These guys were people with a shovel digging into a hill. So things happen. And sometimes things happen, just like the Roswell incident, man. There's a lot of questions around that. Was it a weather balloon? Was it a UFO? They found bodies and they shipped the bodies off, blah, 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 blah. Man, yeah, probably a UFO crashed, and then they took that weather balloon and tore it up and threw it down just to cover it up, I'm just saying that if something lives for 100 million years and it has a high rate of survivability, then certainly it could be, right? It's plausible. So, May 1961, New York State, a businessman flying his private plane over the Hudson River claimed that he was buzzed by a large flying creature that he said looked like a pterodactyl, right? The early 1960s, California, a couple driving through Trinity National Forest reported seeing the silhouette of a giant bird that they estimated the wingspan to be 14 feet. Later, they described it as resembling a pterodactyl. January 1976, in Harlingen, Texas, teens Jackie Davis and Tracy Lawson reported seeing a bird on the ground that stood 5 feet tall, was dark in color, with a bald head and a face like a gorilla's, with a sharp 6-inch long beak. A subsequent investigation by their parents uncovered tracks that had 3 toes that were 8 inches across. February 1976, San Antonio, Texas, 3 elementary school teachers saw what they described as a pterodactyl swooping low over their cars as they drove. They said its wingspan was between 15 and 20 feet. One of the teachers commented that it glided through the air on huge, bony wings like a bat. So let me ask you so far, because I want to know what you think. All these reports, let's say that you believe these people and their stories, right? I mean, you can't really say, okay, this is a bird. It was a giant condor, with where they have like a 9-foot wingspan, right? These are huge edibles. If they got 14, 16, 20-foot wingspan, I mean, that's humongous. And for these people, they're going to sit there, they're going to look at them, they're going to be terrified. And all of their explanations, and about all their descriptions. Think about it. September 1982, Los Fresnos, Texas. An ambulance driver named James Thompson was stopped while driving on Highway 100 by the sighting of a large bird-like object flying low over the area. He described it as a black or grayish with had rough texture, but no feathers. It had a 5 to 6 foot wingspan, a hump on the back of its head, and almost no neck at all. After consulting some of the books to identify the creature, he decided it most likely like a pterosaur. So, how about this? The Africa Congamato. While other reports of pterodactyl-like creatures have come out of Arizona, Mexico, Crete, and also out of Central Africa, some of the most interesting anecdotes have come while traveling through Zambia. In 1923, Frank H. Milland collected reports from natives of an aggressive flying reptile they called Kongomodo, which means overwhelmer of the boats. The natives, who were occasionally tormented by these creatures, described them as being featherless, with smooth skin, having a beak full of teeth, and a wingspan of between 4 to 7 feet. While shown illustrations of pterosaurs, Milan reported the natives identified the most resembling the Kongomodo. In 1925, a native man was allegedly attacked by a creature that he identified as a pterosaur. This occurred near a swamp in Rhodesia, where the man suffered a large wound to his chest that said was caused by the monster's long beak. In the late 1980s, noted cryptozoologist Roy Macau led an expedition into Namibia, from which he had heard reports of a prehistoric creature with a wingspan up to 30 feet. So, photo evidence. Pterosaurs really died out when the dinosaurs and their fossil remains were not the first discovered until 1784. Then a depiction of one could not possibly exist in an ancient rock carving. Yet a pictograph found high on a cliff face near Thompson, Utah, seems to show just that. While many experts believe the drawing is a bird, the beak, head, prominence, wings, and legs look all like a pterodactyl. Another fascinating tale of the pterodactyl literally coming out of the stone dates back to Stone Age. It's not really the Stone Age. 1856 in France, workmen were digging. That's the story I talked about earlier, when they found a boulder of limestone was split open, and they were astonished to see the large winged creature come tumbling out. And then it let out a croaking noise and then dropped dead at their feet. The creature had thick black leathery skin, a beak full of sharp teeth, long talons for feet, and membrane-like wings that spanned 10 feet 7 inches by their measure. The body of the creature was taken to the nearby town of Gray, according to the story, where it was identified to be a pterodactyl by a student of paleontology. As reported in the Illustrated London News of February 9th, 1856, the rock of which the creature had apparently been entombed for millions of years contained a precise mold of its body. Ooh, maybe it wasn't a rock. Maybe it was some kind of egg, you know? The April, I mean, but think about it. Let's say it was limestone and that thing had to have gotten into it and then still survived all that time with no food, no water, no nothing. And it's going to come out and make a noise and freaking die. If something like that, that's amazing survivability, right? So the April 25th, 1980 edition of the Tombstone, it was Arizona paper, of the two Arizona ranchers who claimed to have chased on horseback a flying monster resembling a huge alligator with an extremely elongated tail and an immense pair of wings. True to the spirit of the West, they shot the creature, you know. Taking measurements, they reported that the monster was 92 feet long with a 160-foot wingspan and a mouth full of sharp teeth. It done shot down a dragon. I think you've gone past pterodactyl, you know, or you shot down a bird and with a lot of whiskey inside of you. 92 feet long. That's gigantic, man. Nothing like that flying around now. 747, maybe. The story is not taken seriously by many researchers today, though, but it corresponds loosely with a story about a thunderbird that was allegedly shot at the same time in 1886 and dragged into a town to be photographed. Several paranormal researchers claim to recall seeing that photo, but don't know where. And the photo has not been seen since. So think about that. The thunderbird, you know? And people need to shoot stuff down. You wonder why you even have an Air Force. But that's the deal. Don't you think that things can also mutate? Things can grow and expand. I mean, they can meet, evolve, right? They can evolve. But it's just funny that people are referencing pterodactyls when they see these creatures, you know. And if I was set up better with this StreamYard, I'd be able to show you actual video and pictures of these pterodactyls, man. But no. And even in 2020, people are seeing pterodactyls all over the place. The year people stayed in, and I guess they're still staying in. So, but in a lot of these countries, they just know them as like a predator, and they come down, they swoop in, take whatever, animals, fish, attack people. You saw. I mean, birds are pretty badass to begin with. You don't want to mess with a bird. Ever see the birds? Yeah, they mess with you, man. You get enough of them together, like a murder of crows or something, they come right after you, man. But what about pterodactyls? And if you do have something, a lot of the accounts, let's say 6 or 7 foot wingspan, that's big, man. That's huge. If you're just kind of walking along, the ones with the 16 to 30 foot wingspan, 40 foot wingspan, I mean, that's out there. So do I believe that they're out there? I believe people believe they're out there. I can't say it unless I've seen it for myself. I know that there's a lot of weird stuff out there. There's a lot of land. I talk to people around the world, especially in little congested areas, and then we talk about United States sometimes, and like the cities, like how congested they can be, Chicago or New York City or whatever, right? But once you leave those places, it's nothingville. I mean, you get to the Badlands of Wyoming and that area up there, and you get into the Great Plains and the core of the center of the country. I mean, there's a lot of land, north, south, east, and west. Land on land. You could be out there in Wyoming and be literally 80, 90 miles between towns, and the towns are just basically towns that were put together by travelers at one time, hotels, gas stations, and tourist tourist stuff, right? Whatever they can do to rope you in. But do I believe that pterodactyls could be alive and well in those valleys, those hills? I mean, look at the Grand Canyon. Look at all the mysteries of the Grand Canyon. Those stuff that people say. You know, yeah, I do believe that. I believe that they could exist. I think that they could probably even thrive, on a certain level. And if more and more people are seeing them, I think more and more, you have more and more instances of them thriving, right? So even Science Daily getting involved. Look at that. Fourth new pterodactyl discovery in a matter of weeks, right? This was April of 2020 when they saw this. So, but let's see. Hot on the heels of a recent paper discovering 3 new species of pterosaur, University of Portsmouth uh, paleobiologists have identified another new species. Oh, never mind. See, these guys are chasing stuff that's like buried, man. You see, that's my problem with scientists. You know, they're chasing stuff that's buried. I mean, these guys should be chasing it for real. And the second you are in that world and you hear about a sighting of a pterodactyl, that's when you pack up your kit and you go, right? Look at tornado chasers. They pack up their stuff and they go. You got to be out there. So, but I don't know. A lot of people have the different ideas about pterodactyls and other creatures too. And then, you see all the stories about the Bigfoot. Here comes Bigfoot. Do I believe in Bigfoot? I believe that they have to have a community unless they can live forever. Live for a long time anyway. Live for hundreds of years or something. Then, yeah, there could be one straggler running around. And in contrast, the story I just told of Spanish Hill, right? Now, all those skeletons they found were very tall. They said the females were about 9 feet, the males were like 14, 15 feet, right? So there's a question of, I mean, obviously these weren't Native Americans, and obviously these were creatures from an era that is not of our own, but could some of them still be alive and exist, right? Could some of them keep up the community? And yeah, you think that in upstate New York, it's not, the nature's nature, but you're not going to get lost in upstate New York. You might fall into a gorge. You might, all kinds of things could befall you on the path, but it's not like you're going to get lost and end up in the wilderness and never be seen again, because at some point you're going to run into a 7-Eleven. At some point you're going to hit a highway or someone's farm or someone's trailer or whatever the hell you're going to hit. It's going to be there. In the Adirondacks, maybe not as much, but you're still going to, if you go in one line, you're going to see or hit something, right? So out west, you can get lost in those woods. You can get lost, be gone. And you often, like when you're driving out there, you look up into the hills and you're like, man, that's like when I was watching Grizzly Adams when I was growing up, man. This dude that basically said F you to life. He left the world, took his little stuff, and then he found that dude from Dukes of Hazzard, Uncle Jesse. He found Uncle Jesse, and they had a nice life on Brokeback Mountain. That was actually the beginning of Brokeback Mountain, as George Lucas told the story, man. So, just kidding. I don't want to get sued by George Lucas or Brokeback Mountain. I've never even seen it. I just reference it because I know it's funny to me for my own personal reasons. I'm just saying, the guy leaves society, then hears the screams of a bear cub, looks down this mountain cliff, and there's the bear cub all stranded by itself, crying out, and he knows, you don't save that bear's going to die. So the guy gets his rope, lowers himself down, grabs the bear cub, saves the bear, and then has like this lifelong happy kind of relationship with the bear and his cabin, and they all kinds of stories would have because of that. But it's appealing to people because of the leaving the megalomania behind and embracing your roots in nature. But you don't know what's in those woods. Could be that dude with the bear. Could be some sorority of chicks hanging out, having a party, man. I don't know. Those are just things I've experienced when I go into the woods. But I'm in a college town. You can't. Don't judge me. That's the woods around here. They're tricky, tricky woods. You gotta be careful too, man. But you just, you don't have to believe these things. You just look at the data and listen to people when they tell the story. Are they excited? Are they exuberant? Are they like, wow? Because when people have an experience, man, they really lift themselves up and they're like, wow, you can't believe I saw this, man. It is crazy, dude. Like that night, I saw that UFO looking thing at Montauk Point. And I had no idea that they had a base there and all kinds of things that they would work on. I didn't know. At that time, I was 17 years old. Didn't know anything, man. I knew I liked to go out to Montauk Point and hang out, you know. But that's a whole nother story, whole nother thing. But then I met a girl in a club later on, a few years later, and I told her my story about Montauk Point and then the thing with the lights and the police that surrounded us and government cars and screamed at us, like what were we doing there? What were we doing at the Air Force Base that's underground? And none of that stuff was even making sense. Air Force Base underground. Those two things don't go together. You know what I mean? Whole definition of air is not underground. But this girl gave me this book called The Montauk Boys, and I was like, wow, man, I didn't know any of that. So, but then I did, and that's how you educate yourself, and then you talk to people. Then my friend Bobby, who worked at a 7-Eleven, we used to hang out there and play video games all night, man. a quarter a piece. These kids now, they don't know how good they have it. But and this guy would come in all the time who was a janitor at Brookhaven Labs and all. So he never really talked about it, whatever. And the guy would just come and hang out, talk about the news. Everybody on Long Island reads at least 3 newspapers a day still. And, so you know what's going on. It's important to be informed, right? But this guy was like, got fired one night. And, he said for talking too much and stupid reason. And he's like, they have a tram that goes underground to the Montauk base, and there's like 30 something floors down there of active floors where they're doing experiments, and they've always done. I mean, this guy was like talking. My friend and I had never heard this out of him before. We're like looking at each other like, well, and we never saw the guy again either, man. So that's my story. Not really. That's only part of it, man. So anyway, I'm going to end the show, man. So look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's a pterodactyl, man. And it's going to come in and it's going to eat your head like a pumpkin. So you got to watch out. I mean, I want to see more and more information. I want to hear from more and more blogs from people. That's such a great way of getting the information out there. Then, of course, there's a lot of BS too, but you can kind of sort through it as it goes. So anyway, I'll see you guys next week on Discovery Paranormal on United Public Radio Network, UPRNTalkradio.com. See you next week. Bye.